Back in here we have our lab. And this is where the forensic people do all their stuff, where we process all of our exhibits. When we go to a scene, we collect exhibits. It could be anything from firearms, bullet cartridge cases, it could be clothing, anything as far as the scene is concerned, where we have to deal with DNA, we have to deal with fingerprinting, and we have to deal with processing exhibits and keeping them so we can get them packaged up and ready to go to the Center of Forensic Sciences. So in here we have a drying room. We call them drying rooms. We have two here, and these are in a pressurized area. Come on in. But I have to close this door here, so come on in. Because if I don't close this door, an alarm will go off. Because this is a pressurized room. Whereas if there's any biohazards or anything, because we deal with a lot of exhibits that have blood on them, so when we have problems with air quality, as far as blood is concerned, we have to have the room pressurized, and it's sort of a negative pressurization where you can feel the air is being sucked in there, and it's just being pulled out, and all of the air is taken outside, so it's safe for us to breathe in here. Okay. Right? When blood dries, it can also go airborne, because when blood dries, it can go into like a powder state, and if you start messing around with blood, it will get up into the air, and you can actually take the DNA out of this room and put it somewhere else. Or if there's problems with the blood, say that there's somebody that we're dealing with that has HIV, all right, we can ingest the blood and we can get HIV ourselves. So we have to protect ourselves, and that's why these rooms are special this way. So we just haven't done it this way. These lockers here are drying lockers. They will, again, when we get a lot of garments or bloody clothes, we will put them inside the lockers here. When we put the power to this, and they will dry the clothing to the point where we can work with it, because we can't work with it while it's wet. We have to just take it in and we hang up the clothing, and we will leave it there until it dries and gets basically hard, and that's what happens here. And again, these dry safes have HEPA filters in them that we have to change all the time. So once we have dealt with one of the exhibits or the exhibits from one case, we have to take them out, and then we have to scrub these cabinets and the room. For the reason being is that, again, with DNA, if you leave DNA in the room, all right, the next case that comes in could be contaminated by the DNA from the case before. So we have to keep everything clean. So once we're finished with the case in here and everything's done, we have to clean up the cabinet, and we have to have it ready for the next person that uses the room, so to speak. That's just a preparation table where we can just lay out things to take photographs. We also have this board here. So what we do is we take the clothes, we use these big magnets, and we hang the clothing up so we take a photograph. Everything that we seize, we take photographs of, for records. Photography is very important for us. But as far as bodies are concerned, we don't handle the bodies. The bodies go to the Center of Forensic Sciences, and that's where the coroner's the branch is, and that's where they do the pathology there. So there's no autopsies that are formed here. As I said, in forensics, we're always dealing with identity of things. So one of our biggest deals is dealing with fingerprints. So when we take fingerprints or we bring in items and we want to see if there's fingerprints on there, we have to do what is called dusting. I can demonstrate that to you if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Anytime that we collect things, we deal with what is called our latent fingerprints. Now, latent means that they're invisible. You can't see them. Actually, you can, because if you do look at this, I just put some fingerprints on here. And if I was at a scene and I'm looking for prints, I can use my light, and it's called oblique lighting or graze lighting. And if you can see on here, some places I can use, you can actually see fingerprints just by using a flashlight in a certain way. So if I go to a scene and I see something here and I say, okay, there's something there. I know there's something there. So what I have to do is enhance those prints, and I use powders for that. So this one here, probably use this, and we'll dust for prints. Use this very sparingly because this is a very, very sensitive powder. Now, as you can see, I've just written over, just gone right over top with the powders here, and I've brought up what I put down as fingerprints. That's called enhancing with fingerprint powders. Okay. Well, they're not very good fingerprints because I don't give good fingerprints. I don't have very good ridge detail on my fingerprints. There. From here, what I would do if let's say that the fingerprint was right here, and I wanted to collect that fingerprint so I could do a comparison with no file prints. I could, but I don't want to take this from the scene. So what I have to do is what we call is lifting. Okay, so with lifting, I would use, I'm just using just some of the stuff here. I would use, we call this lift tape. We would take the fingerprint itself, and what we would do is we take it and we put it across. I'm just doing this very quickly for you. You'd be a lot more careful if it was a seam. And I would take this and I would take the print and I would lift it. And that's called lifting. So now I have the print with me.
Yeah.
Right? And I would put this on another piece of paper. I got a backing paper, then I can take this back to the lab with me and then I can do my comparisons that way. That's what lifting is called. Now there's other ways of developing fingerprints. The simplest way is dusting. In some cases we can enhance fingerprints by glue fuming. Have you heard about glue fuming?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have.
You know what super glue is?
Yeah.
It's called cyanoacrylate. That's what it is. And what we do is we will subject whatever it is that has the fingerprint on it into this chamber here. And in this chamber, what we will do is we will hang up our stuff in here or place, our articles in here. And then there's a hot plate in there. And we'll put a little bit of super glue into a cup. And we will turn the hot plate on, and it will heat up the super glue, and it can cause a fume, which we can't breathe because it's dangerous, right? So it has to stay inside here. So what the glue does is it vaporizes, and it connects with all the fats and lipids from the fingerprint, because you have oil on your fingers and stuff like that. Okay, that's what it adheres to, and actually what it causes is a permanent fingerprint, right? Because it will polymerize it and make it permanent. Okay, from there, then we can use that, and then we can go from there. Other ways of doing this, we have this chamber here, it's called DFO, and I can give you the chemical name for it, but it's about this long. Okay, so DFO is used for getting fingerprints off of paper documents. We can get fingerprints, we can use DFO, we can use another substance or a chemical process called ninhydrin. And ninhydrin will act with the amino acids that come out of your fingers, all right, and they will form a fingerprint on a paper document. From there you can, again, compare your fingerprints with known file prints. Known file prints is that when you arrest somebody, you know, they go and they get fingerprinted. Those fingerprints stay on file, right? So now we know that this person belongs to this set of fingerprints, and if we get a print at a scene, then we can take that print and go through computers. We can match and give us, you know, close fingerprints. And what we will do is we will match the two fingerprints and make a positive identification. And that's through just looking through an eyeglass and actually picking out the points. When we're looking for other sorts of evidence, we have other tools that we use. One is called it's called an alternate light source. And we can use this alternate light source to look for different things under different bands of light. You've heard of ultraviolet light? Well, ultraviolet light, all right, let's go step back just for a second here. Is if you have body fluids at a scene, right? If you suspect that there's body fluids, I'm talking sweat, I'm talking semen. Anything is body fluids. You know what one thing about body fluids is? They fluoresce, right? So if we use UV light on something, then we know that it's going to fluoresce. So if we get a garment in here that has, say, semen on it, if we put the UV light to the clothing, it will glow. It will sit right out there and glow. We know that that piece of garment does have semen on it. And we will send that to the Center for Forensic Sciences. They will extract the DNA and they will match it to any samples that we send them, or they will go to the DNA data bank and they will search on the data bank to see if they have a match for that. At any given moment, we have our travel kit that we take with us, and we're on the road and away we go. When I go out in the field, I take this as my kit, and in my kit I have, of course, a camera, because anytime that we go to a scene, the first thing that we want to do is record the scene as we find it. As soon as we walk in, we don't touch anything, we don't move anything, we take photographs and video first. So I have a camera, and I also have a small video camera that I can take video of course with a flash unit, and then everything else, just basic stuff here. Battery packs, spare batteries for me. This is one of my kits. My other kits that I will have fingerprint powders inside. I will have evidence bags where I can collect different things. I will have swabs. Swabs are used for taking samples of blood, right? And then we can keep that sample of blood, and we put them in special bags that self-dry the swabs, because if we don't, we have to refrigerate or freeze them. But these will self-dry the swabs, and then we can take them and we submit them to the Center for Forensic Sciences for that. So when we're collecting any sort of evidence, we have to deal with what is called as continuity. When we have continuity, it means that I'm in charge of this exhibit, and we have to go to, if we have to go to court, we have to justify that once the exhibit is put inside this bag, nobody else has touched it. Okay? So the way we do that is that with these evidence bags, we have a numbered bag that we use, and it has an integrity seal on it. So when we pull the seal here and we put this in and seal this, if somebody were to try and break and open this seal, it would distort, meaning that somebody else has been in that bag. But I can go to court. If I put a piece of evidence in this bag and I leave it at this number, I can take it to court and they can say, well, how do you know that nobody else has touched this bag? It's because this is my bag, this is the number I recorded in my notebook, and I can see that the integrity seal is fine. Nobody else has touched that piece of evidence. That's what evidence bags are for. So like I said, they're used for what is called as continuity. And again, if somebody gives me, say an investigator grabs something, puts it in this bag, gives it to me. They will write down, they say, I collected it at this time and at this date, and then I gave it to Hank Thorne. And then Hank Thorne writes in his notebook, I got it from so-and-so. And if I give it to somebody, then I give it to him. That's called chain of custody, right? It means that it's moved from different people, but it's still in the same bag. Now, if I need to work on this piece of this exhibit, I break the chain, right? So I record in my notebook that I've taken it out of this bag, worked on it, and then I will put it in a new bag and say that this bag is no longer in play. This is now the bag's. So we have to record every time evidence is moved and keep it all together so we know that it hasn't been compromised. Let's just say that that is my piece of evidence down there, okay? So what I would do is I would come in here and I would take what is called an overall photograph, the whole room, to show where that piece of evidence is at, okay? Then I would move in a little bit closer, mid-range, and take a photograph of that evidence in reference to this corner of the room. And then from there, I would move in and I would take a close-up of the evidence. And when I take a close-up of the evidence, I will put a scale beside it. Right? So when I take my photograph, I will put an evidence number there. Say that's, I'm going to call it Exhibit 1. I will put a card there. I will also put a scale there. Now the reason for putting a scale into the thing is that if we wanted to recreate this piece of evidence on a photograph and make it the exact size that it's represented in the photograph, right, we can use the scale and we can figure out how big the picture has to be to show the actual size of this thing for court, right? But if I can take this to court, this is called real evidence. Right? This is the actual piece of evidence that I'm taking to court. If I take a picture of it, it's called secondary evidence. Right? Secondary evidence is real. Sometimes you'll have a car. Well, that's too big to take into an apartment, isn't it? Right? So you take a picture of the car and take it in. That's called secondary evidence. Okay? Right. It's a dusting cabinet. Right? The dusting that I was using to make my fingerprints, right? The one powder that I did use, and I used it very sparingly, has aluminum in it. Aluminum's not good for you to ingest. Right? If you get too much aluminum, you can have Alzheimer's problems down the road, right? So what we do anytime that we dust, we will dust inside the cabinet here, and it's just like it's basically like the fan over the stove. Right? It sucks everything out and outside, so you don't have to worry about it. So we would just put our cabinet up here, we turn on the fans, and then it's sucking all the dust up in here, and we're not ingesting it ourselves. Anytime we go into a scene and say, and we do go into scenes that are very dirty, and we do have to deal with bed bugs in people's homes, and we have to deal with HIV, and we have to deal with all kinds of different issues. So we always have gloves, disposable gloves that we use, right? We have some over there. Place them on our hands, and that way that we're not taking any of our evidence, or any of our DNA, and putting it on the evidence. We're being protected at the same time, okay? We wear masks. So if we're coughing in the room, we're not spreading our DNA. And then the other thing is that we have full body suits. All right, they're big paper suits that we put on to protect ourselves. And that way, when I go home to my own house, I'm not taking anything from the bed bug house to my house. And I'm protecting myself, and I'm protecting my family. So that's why we have to be very, very cautious about that. So we carry all of that equipment with us, but we have full-size vans where we carry all of our equipment. We have 4 of them that are throughout the province, right? So, and we have access to them.